So we shot this video on a very warm day this summer, which you'll probably be able to tell. We were a little bit rushed because Andrew still had a lot of driving to do that day. So in our setup, we were very hurried and we didn't get some of the camera angles the best they could be. I'm guilty of one of them. I set a camera for my height, not Andrew's. And so we're a little cut off in some of the shots, but I know you're watching this video not to see us, but to hear this amazing organ. So welcome to Third Baptist Church.
Hi, I'm Andrew Schaeffer.
And I'm Brent Johnson.
And today we have come to an extraordinarily special organ. Perhaps the most requested organ of all time on the Organ Media Foundation channel. See, Brent is way too busy traversing the country and visiting all these interesting instruments that he's never actually taken the time to come here to Third Baptist Church, where you hold forth as organist, to show us this incredible instrument that has quite a beautiful history. So we thought it would be fun to swap spots, since he knows this organ so much better than I, and take us through these stops.
Well, thank you, Andrew. That was a wonderful introduction. You could do this anytime you wanted. To talk about this instrument, you're right. There's a lot to say. There's a lot to hear. It's one of the reasons we haven't done it is because this is going to buckle in. We're going to be here for a little bit. This organ is a 1930 Kilgen at its heart. That's what the first instrument.
Shocking here in St. Louis.
Yeah, I know. Kilgen at the time was located just a few blocks away,
right.
Actually. They actually built an organ here in 1920, and it was the largest organ in St. Louis at the time.
Not that matters.
Not that that mattered. And I'm sure it was usurped a couple of weeks later. Everything in the 20s was the world's biggest something.
But I'm sure Kilgen was very happy to have a large showpiece, right?
They were.
I
know Alfred Hollins came to town and he played it. I'm sure. I don't know if Pietro Jan was involved with Kilgen in the 20s, but possibly if he would have come seen it. Yeah. And from the spec, that organ looks like it was amazing. 4 manuals, I think 60 ranks. It had a solo division. It had 32s. It had full choruses. Sure. It was wonderful. Unfortunately, the blower caught fire in 1928. And the blower's right down underneath where we are, and the fire came up and burned this part of the room and burned
Went
the
right through the wind lines too. I'm
Pretty
sure
much,
to
yeah.
act as chimneys, which was great. Yeah.
Didn't destroy the building, fortunately. I should add, the building has been here on this corner. The church is 175 years old this year. We're having big celebrations all around. But they've been here on this location at the corner of Washington and Grant since 1885. In 1885, this was a well-to-do residential neighborhood. There's still some Second Empire style houses out across the street. But since in those intervening 40 years, this became the theater district. There were theaters in every corner. The Missouri Theater, one of the biggest in the state, was right next door. St. Louis Theater, it's still there. The Fox Theater opened the same year that we had the fire.
The Scottish Rite is
around the corner. So we should say Washington and Grand was the busiest intersection in St. Louis at the time. Wow. And the streetcar lines converged here. This became the biggest church in Missouri in the 1930s and 40s. But they had this fire. And so they had to recover. Now, because they were in the middle of all these theaters, they hired a theater architect. And that's why this room has all this wedding cake plaster, all of this ornate woodwork.
Deco grills.
Right.
I love it, yeah.
And I've had people come in and ask me, what theater did this used to be? Because they just expect it here among all the others. And that's also why we have no exposed pipes. That would have been the style of the Fox Theater. Doesn't have any exposed pipes, everything. Put the money in the organ, not in the facades. So there are, in this organ, 72 ranks of pipes. Kilgen came in 1930 and rebuilt a new organ. They were supposed to build a new 60-rank organ. They didn't. They only built 30 ranks because, I guess, depression, recovering from a fire, they put the priority somewhere else. And I'm really glad they didn't finish it because I have seen the spec for what they wanted to build, and it was going to be really boring.
Really?
It was a lot of 16-foot, a lot of 8-foot. Maybe 1 2-foot, I think, in the swell, a little cornet mixture. It was not. Yeah. It was amazing between 1920 and 1930 how much that company's focus changed.
Well, and that's really interesting in that so many organ builders were starting to think more in terms of choruses and upper work, and you have Gino Harrison coming to Aeolian Skinner, and Kimball was certainly branching out into choruses, and so interesting to see Kilgen sort of.
Even the
retreating.
Wicks, the Rock Church organ that we featured, the Wicks is right up the street. With Henry Vincent Willis and full choruses in that organ just 5 years after Kilgen, and they weren't going in that direction. So actually, it's a good thing they didn't finish the organ.
Sure.
The war came along, that slowed things down even more. And then finally, after World War II, when the organists were finally allowed to start building organs again, they wanted to finish the instrument. There was an organist here named Catherine Carmichael. She was organist from 1928 to 1965. I still got a little more to work on to catch up with her. But
you'll beat her.
The story I heard was she didn't like the Kilgens. I don't know if that meant she didn't like the
Kilgen
family. Or the organ or the company, or didn't like Kilgen organ.
Well,
all of it. So she brought in Moller. And Moller was, the local Moller rep was a guy named Gus Brummer, and his name will come up again later. But Gus was across the river in Granite City, Illinois, and ended up convincing them to go with Moller. And Moller completed the instrument using all of the existing Kilgen. I think all of the existing Kilgen. Now, again, it's post-war. Organ builders are still struggling to get materials and things, so they kept a lot of the Kilgen stuff. So over here on this side, it was all Kilgen chests, wind chests, and there were vertical Kilgen swell shades. Over here on this chamber, it was all Moller chests and horizontal swell shades, because I think that side hadn't been, it was not expressive in the original organ, or Kilgen didn't intend for it to be. Right. When I got here in 2004 was the first time I walked in. I found this, I knew it was a big Moller organ, but I didn't really know much more about it, and came in and sat down and thought, oh, this is something really special.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons it's special is because of how much Kilgen there is in it. All of those Kilgen foundations and flutes that they built really well. That part, I'm glad it's there. I'm glad they didn't continue that and build the rest of the organ. And then Moller very sensibly built on top of it. So even though you've got a hybrid organ with two different builders, it works very cohesively.
You know, this, and I know Reuter came in later, I'm spoiling the story a little bit, but it's a conglomeration of three builders, and it's a fabulous organ from what I've played. This organ reminds me a lot of the history of Woolsey Hall. Everyone just says, Woolsey Hall, oh, the Skinner and Woolsey Hall. Well, there's, certainly a lot of Skinner influence. He built the console, a lot of the pipe work, but that's actually a conglomeration of three distinct organs, Hutchings, J.W. Steer in 1915, and then finally Skinner. And G. Donald Harrison had a lot to do with Woolsey Hall, probably more than Skinner himself. And so it's those three builders, Skinner was able to weave it into this beautiful tapestry of sound, and you can't really tell what is what in the Woolsey Hall organ, even though it has a substantial amount of old pipe work. Pre-Skinner. And I think that's true of this organ too. Part of its charm is that it's been so wonderfully tied together by Reuter and Moller, it sounds like too.
Yeah. Well, when I came in, there were a lot of problems with it already, so I knew going in, like, oh, we're going to have to do some work. We actually were just looking at doing releathering. In fact, I would go up there and pull out bottom boards and do some releathering, and I would make sure I did them out in the hallway where there was more room and everybody could see how many little moving parts there were. But again, that was just patching things here and there, and there would be another one. And so finally I convinced the committee, like, we have to show that. They actually let me get up. It's a Baptist church. They have church meetings. So we had the whole congregation.
You don't say.
And they let me get up in front, and I was able to show them that I can turn on 8 or 10 stops and it all sounds fine, but if I just use selective stops, I get ciphers all over the place. And they never heard that, so it was an easy move for them. This church loves music. They love this organ. It was a no-brainer.
I saw the Steinway.
It was a no-brainer to get the organ repaired and get it redone. So we started the process, and every builder, I think one builder gave us a bid to re-leather. Every other builder said it's cheaper to put in new wind chests. And I kind of knew they were going to say that, even though...
Especially with the two different kinds.
Right. And I sort of served as a consultant on the committee. I let them make the decisions. But so I knew that was going to come back, and then that led to, well, as long as we're getting new wind chests, why don't we move some things around, and why don't we add a few things to it? So it does have some additions, and those additions came from Organ Supply. They came from Eastern Organ Pipes, which was the remnants of the Moller Organ Company reed shop. So the new reeds look just like the old ones because they were made by the same guys. And then Reuter contributed a couple of ranks of pipes from some of their vintage instruments.
But the chests are all Reuter.
The chests are all Reuter. So it's essentially a new organ with pipes from old pipes from several different builders, including Kimball. There's one Kimball stop in here we'll have to talk about.
The most important one, as we'll find out soon.
And and it's all been well woven together beautifully. Now Reuter actually didn't ever get to hear it playing. It's a long story. Find me in a bar someday and we'll sit down and I'll tell you the whole story. But I remember sitting in here with Bill Klimas when he was pulling on the great stops going, have you heard this? Listen to this. He didn't expect it to have as much color as it did. So just some of the things we did to improve the sound is we got the chests up higher, so the mouths of the pipe are actually clearing the openings. This side over here actually had 3 stories at one point.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a tuning nightmare.
It is. So we got everything down onto just 2 levels, and it stays much more together much more. And so that's kind of the history of this organ. We did have to take out everything on that side a few years ago after a leak. It's very expensive. That allowed us to make one digital edition. I had actually asked for a real edition, and the builders were like, no, I'm sorry. By the time you spend that much money, it's not going to fit well, and you're just going to, in a few years, have to redo it anyway. So we do have a digital harp and celeste.
Okay.
So,
well,
which is the only thing when I first came in, like, why doesn't it have
a
one?
lot of people do that.
That's the only thing it was missing.
Every organ needs one more stop.
Yeah. My goal in having the organ restored, though, was I want it to sound like a 1940s Moller. I don't want it to be brightened up. And every builder kind of wanted to do some things.
Sure.
And we said, careful, just let's keep it under control. And so all of the additions we made, we'll talk about them as we go through, were made with the existing organ, the previous organ, the Kilgen sounds, the Moller sounds in mind. And I think we were very successful.
But Reuter did not build this console. This was built by Jim Schmidt.
This is
correct?
Jim Schmidt, my former colleague and good friend. I just saw him a few weeks ago. He built this console. I think this is the second of his consoles we featured, the first being Fourth Presbyterian in Chicago. He built that one shortly after this one was built. So
he's the console guy. I know a lot of builders use him, and
he built
for good reason, because consoles are hard to build, and this is a big console, but it doesn't feel daunting.
No, and it moves around up here very easily. We can put it anywhere on the platform, but everything's easy reach. And all of the design was, if things seem maybe there's a question as why it stops, we just went with what the Moller had. We were duplicating, so even though it's a new console, we wanted people to say, well, I can believe Moller did this. So so I want to do this one a little differently because I can. So to get into the grate, we go up these stairs over here that take us up to the balcony, and halfway up there's a door that takes us into the second floor of the sanctuary, same way we get around to the baptistry. And there's a door right here, and we open that up, and now we are looking in at the grate division, so I want to start there. One of the things I like about the layout of the grate, and Reuter was able to accommodate this, is there's kind of two identical chests. We have our first open diapason and our second open. We have our string, we have our Gem's horn, we have our 8-foot flute, and we have the stop flute. So they're kind of mirrored chests.
Well, enough talking about this monster. I want to hear it.
Well, I would love to play it for you, but I know that I will get letters of complaint and emails if I let Andrew Schaeffer stand right here and not use his skills playing this instrument. So I'm sorry, that's as much as I'm going to do.
Do anything to weasel out of this. Okay.
Trust me, I will get letters.
Okay.
So come have a seat.
All right.
You're going to do this.
Fine, if I must.
So
here we are.
Now I've got a cheat sheet up here to remind myself because I forget sometimes.
Very good.
There are something, what's Kilgen and what's Moller.
Right.
So I'm going to start, one of my favorite sounds in this organ is the second diapason in the grate. That's over here on our first chest.
It's beautiful.
It is, and that was the primary diapason of the 1930 Kilgen. That was
way.
As big as it was going to get.
That is really stringy, and it's a lovely sound. I could play it for hours, but it is not what you would expect from a 1930s Kilgen.
So we continue up on that same chest, and is the 4-foot principal, and again, this is Kilgen. And then with the second.
Has a nice incisive tone to it.
Yeah. So that, and then from there, I don't think Kilgen finished anything higher than that, so Moller had to complete the rest of the chorus. But now for comparison, let's go get the first diapason, and this is Moller from the 1940s.
If I had no idea, I would have thought that they were swapped. It's very confusing.
But certainly a much bigger, rounder, fatter sound. I find myself not using it as much as I used to, just because there's so many other colors that it adds so much to the ensemble. And then the 4-foot octave is what Moller put on top.
But like its Kilgen counterpart, that's really nice and incisive. Mm-hmm. And do they work well together, the 2/8s and the 2/4s?
They do. You can mix and match, and you get a whole lot of combinations.
So here's the first open and then the 4-foot principal, right? That's that would be mixing and matching.
Yeah.
And then I'll swap them. got your box sound there.
Exactly. And there's even some other things you can do to sort of reinforce the 4-foot. You can use both 4-foots with one 8-foot diapason and brighten that area. So
Right.
yeah, I spend lots of time just sitting there mixing and matching. To complete that course, then we can have. Let's go to the 2-foot.
Okay.
Let's hear the first. Well, first our 2-foot, and that's the only 2-foot on the grate. So let's try an 8-4-2 combination there.
This is the second open, the 4-foot principal, which would be
The second 4-foot.
okay. Works well, and then here's the Moller stuff.
Yeah, a little more in your face,
too.
but it's still nice and bright.
Yep.
And then there's a quint that goes in there as well.
Okay.
That's independent.
Here's the first open with the octave. And then with the Kilgen.
With the use of a preset, you've almost got echo choruses on the same division.
Exactly.
Now the mixture
Nice.
is actually a 2-foot mixture, so it's got the 2
The
2/3
mixture,
mixture.
okay.
So you can turn on the 8-4 in the mixture, and you've got a full chorus.
Okay, here's the Moller stuff. Wow, very nice.
Right, and then so you can also, if you need a brighter sound than that, turn off the mixture, turn on the 2-foot in the 2 2/3 because they are duplicated by the mixture, and then use the cymbal,
The cymbal,
the
okay.
other mixture.
That cymbal is nice.
Yes.
It really
just
adds
sits-
a little bit of incisiveness, but it doesn't come screaming at you like you would expect it to.
I think it was Jane Parker Smith who was standing here with a student who was registering things, and she saw a cymbal and went, "Oh no, we can't use that." And I'm like, "No, it's actually not bad." As soon as she saw it, it's one of those stops you just by name you avoid. I'm like, "No, I promise.
Right.
You'll like this one."
So, is it work to put the 16 first octave quint 2? No, you don't need the 2, the mixture.
You don't even need the
cymbal.
quint.
You don't even need the
Because the
quint because,
mixture
of
has
course, yeah. That's a nice sound for Bach. I mean,
is.
you know,
The
it's-
16 is a violon, so it's not huge,
Right.
but it's got a nice prompt speech.
I'd take that.
You also used one of my favorite stops over here. We'll talk about that one.
Oh,
It's
well,
also in this division because it's up in the reed and the grate.
Well, shall we talk
Let's
about
talk
it?
about let's go back to the
flutes.
flutes first because we have this lovely Kilgen Melodia in the grate.
There's a lot of ugly melodias out there, and that is not one of them. I assure you.
It's not.
That's
It's,
really nice.
it's
And it's present. It's
Yeah.
you can actually hear the articulation, the speech from at least where we're sitting.
Now, this is where we get to one of the things I wanted. It's a lovely solo flute, but it's not huge. It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't sing out a lot. It's a good for blending with other things, but every
Right.
now and then you want a little more solo sound.
Sure.
So I had them add a stopped flute. Now this can blend with the melodia to make it a little bigger sound, or even by itself, it's a lovely accompaniment
Sure.
stop.
Well, let's test it out here.
You know,
Good. poor man's harmonic flute.
Right,
That's
because
pretty good.
when you have the French piece that calls for a harmonic flute on
Right.
the grate, you can beef it up there and use that. We should add, as I said, that's expressive. Everything in the grate, choir and positive, everything in this room we've been looking around in is completely behind the same set of shades. It'd be great if the divisions were all
okay.
separate, but the grate is, so all of that's,
So can you add the Gemshorn into the Melodia?
You can.
To sort of give that
it
little
gives
string
it a
tune?
little bit.
I can hear it.
The Gemshorn is gentle on this instrument, but it's handy for accompanimental things, especially with the choir. I just need something to give them a little extra sound. It's a handy thing. Now, this is a Moller stop that is probably one of my favorite in the organ, and it is this 4-foot harmonic flute.
I can see why.
One of my favorite things to do is in addition to using it with the 8-foot, go ahead and show us what that sounds like. But I will couple it down and to 16 with the unison off, so it's an 8-foot stop to pretend, and put the tremolo on with it.
Yeah.
And I use that for a solo voice a lot when it's not something that needs to be real piercing, when it can be
Sure.
kind of soft.
May I?
Oh, feel free.
Yeah, it's a sound I could noodle on for an hour.
It's lovely. You just have to remember, as turning it into an 8-foot, we lose our bottom octave, so don't go below tenor C. But
You mean
you don't need that down there. But here's another fact about this organ. Everything 8 and 4-foot is 73 notes.
Sure.
So you can turn every 8-foot stop into a 4-foot
the
stop.
magic octave?
So the magic octave's up there. We had some restored. Somebody had been in the process of rebuilding relays slowly on the old one, turning them into 61-note stops, and some of
people do that?
some of the top octaves had disappeared. So we had Reuter find us top octaves.
Those are not hard to find.
They're not hard to find. It was not
It's
a big challenge.
It's kind of
So that's all of the flues here in this. So we'll go now to the reeds.
already exhausted.
There's
4 more divisions.
there's 2 reeds in this division. There's 8 and 4 trumpet is a unit, and that's from Kilgen. That's from the 1930 instrument.
Expression.
It's nice, and it's got a nice dark warm sound. That was kind of my, again, poor man's tuba.
Yep.
We could mix it with the diapason and get a nice big round sound before we had,
Sure.
back when the organ was a little more crippled and I had to manufacture it.
I'd buy that.
And then this is another one of my additions. It's a 16-foot double trumpet, which serves kind of 2 purposes. It gives us our 16-foot octave. Up high, it's kind of thin, and so it gives, if you want to couple it up, it gives us a little thinner sound. And then down in the bass is really where it sings.
I'm just gonna play it down. Especially that last bottom octave. But that's a great sound and very prompt. What pressure is that on?
I believe that's 5 inches.
Okay. Let's put them all together.
It's not fiery at all. They're dark and warm.
Right.
We have plenty of fire over in other divisions, so I love having those to just provide a little extra growl, a little extra power behind the principal chorus.
I'm just going to put the 8/4 mixture cymbal, and then the 2 trumpets and the contra trumpet and the 8-foot, and then see what it does. can really get down to purr.
Yeah, it's lovely and amazing that you have that full chorus sound, but you can close it down. So if it's a Sunday, this church loves to sing. But if we have a small crowd, I can still get a nice sound. If I realize I'm playing a little too loud, I can
just close the box.
Down and,
all right.
Yeah. So that's everything that's down here on the bottom level. We do have in the back wall here. Actually, the first stop we see when we go in is the 16-foot open, and this is Kilgen. So it's worth talking about this stop.
Okay.
It goes all the way up to 8 foot here, but this,
Sounds like an open wood.
Yeah, it sounds like it, but it really rattles the room. It rattles the
Sure
pews
it
out
does.
there more than it does right where we're sitting.
Yeah,
so.
that's ginormous. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, you have that big open diapason and the violone, which I would say is more like a more principal scale.
One of the reasons I can say that this is really different from a Moller organ is because after this instrument was finished in the 40s, another church in town asked Moller to build the same organ. So there's another one in town that's a duplicate, and it does not sound like this one.
I'm sure.
It's because it's all Moller. But the one big difference is their 16 actually goes down to 32. And so it's the only 32-foot open flue in St. Louis. So, and it's
until you get one.
And well, we don't have room for one. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Back wall there.
We'll talk to them. All right. Anyway.
I'll talk to Pastor Tom.
So from here now, we go up this ladder that's over by the door, and we go to the second level because everything else is up here. Actually, there's one great stop that's up here, but we have to climb over this little weird hump, and we see there's the top of the open diapason, and then this chest right here contains the positive, and then across from it is, we're actually going to walk around, and there's another chest up here that's the choir, and I want to start with the choir stops.
Okay.
The choir in this organ is not huge. It's not big and loud. I like to think that the solo stops that you would have on a solo manual have been taken off. And while they're not the power of solo stops, the colors are all there.
Yes.
So we've got a French horn, we've got another celeste, we've got two lovely flutes, we've got the clarinet. So let's just start. The first one against the back wall is the viola. Now, when I came here, there was not a celeste in the choir. And so one of the things, because it was on 3 levels, and we said it's tuning nightmare, frequently that choir viola way up in the air was sharp.
Yeah.
And so I would couple it to the grate, turn on the grate violone, couple it up an octave, and I had a celeste made out of these spares.
A poor man's celeste.
Poor man's celeste. And I'm like, we need a celeste. So again, this was one of those things that as long as we're getting new wind chests, there's a box to check. So this is a new organ supply celeste made to match the Moller one. That's all right.
But that's lovely.
It's gentle, very different from the swell celeste, which we'll see later. My predecessor, Mark Gifford, prefers that one to the swell. I actually prefer the swell. It's my go-to first, and then that one when I just need to vary things up because I've been using the swell one too much. And then we have right next to that, there's the 4-foot Fugara.
Goes well with the viola, I imagine.
Yeah, it's a little different than I might expect out of a Fugara.
Does it work well with the celeste? It's sort of a
it can,
string?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Again, why would you do that when you can
Yeah,
just
super couple?
Yeah, that's more successful.
It's the Fugara is very lovely and it works great, especially blending with other divisions. It's got a little bit of a horn edge to it. It's a little bigger scale than I would probably expect, but it's got its spot and it serves it there well. We have an 8-foot concert flute in here, another Kilgen stop, and this is just lovely.
contrast with the melodia there.
And then with it is a 4-foot
Flute d'Amour.
the 4-foot flute d'Amour, which is lovely on its own.
Sounds shockingly like the harmonic flute. I guess not.
Well, this one is wood. The
I was
4-foot
gonna
harmonic flute is metal.
Of course. Yeah.
And this is the only flute. This is the only place where chiff is really employed on this organ.
Yeah, very successfully. I might add.
Our flute choruses then continue up. We continue up with a nazar here. If I remember right, a capped metal pipe.
Sure. So with the flute d'Amour. That adds nice color
Yeah,
to it.
It does. Sadly, there's no tierce in this division. They weren't doing that often in 1947, I guess.
Do you
so
have a tierce
we have
anywhere?
The positive.
Oh,
It does
thank
have
God.
one.
I'm so nervous. You need to have a cornet on this monstrosity.
You would. So the closest you can get. But, with Richard Purvis, he calls for a 4-foot and a 2 2/3 as a solo voice.
Yes,
and
right,
this serves
right.
it perfectly. And sometimes I use that. I wouldn't think to use that on anything else, but I will grab colors like that. And then we get a 2-foot piccolo to top it all off.
Sounds string-like.
Yeah, it's thin. Again, none of these flutes are huge in this division, which makes them nice foils to the great flutes. And again, the whole division is not overwhelming.
No. Well, most choirs aren't.
Now, you were talking about, the principal chorus is getting to mix and match. Because the great and the choir are in one chamber, they kind of can work as one division, which means if you couple them together, the possibilities between the 8-foot flutes and the 4-foot flutes, when you call for, I need something simple like an 8 and 4 combination, haven't done the math as to how many you have. When you couple, you figure you can also use the super couplers and turn your
Right.
4-foots into 8, and so it's the choices are overwhelming sometimes.
Let's just try. I'm going to do the melodia and the 4-foot flute d'Amour. Now I'm going to try the concert flute at 4 with the stop flute. Yeah, you're right. It's nice.
So you can make the same piece of music sound different every time you play it. Just
Well,
with
that's great. And it's historically accurate because a lot of Kilgens had choir and great divisions in the same
same
box
room, yeah.
to save money and space.
That's not everything that's in the choir, but it's everything that's where we're standing. And we'll come back and look at the shiny thing behind me in a minute. But the positive division, this is an interesting little addition. I don't know if this was because of Kathleen Carmichael, the organist, or Gus Brummer, the organ salesman. Now, he played at a church in Granite City, Illinois, and I used to sub there. And there was a Moller organ there from the 60s and 70s, and it was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. Neo-Baroque, I mean, then the draw knobs weren't glued in because he was changing stuff around and experimenting. And so he was a neo-Baroque guy. He wanted some, and so I'm wondering if this is something he was sort of pushing them toward, and
Would have been ahead of its time.
it would. And so, but as we hear, Moller was not building. This is not a big mounted cornet. This is what Moller gave them when they asked for, a positive division. What you expect to be bright and forward and in your face.
Right.
It's based by this 8-foot quintadina. So let's start that.
That ain't no quint.
It's not. It's very subtle. It's got a little quinty flavor.
little bit.
It might smell like quint a little bit, but it is not trying
That's
to be.
pretty deceiving.
It's not trying to be a 1960s.
Which is fine. I mean, yeah,
but
it's
it's a
fine,
useful,
but-
again, and it's in the same division as the choir and great, same box, so you
Sure.
could couple that. Again, this starts to add up your.
An enclosed positive. That is scandalous. Wow.
It is. Then we do have a 4-foot flute that goes on top of it, a roar flute.
Nothing like a somber Lutheran chorale in this division. Here's with the 8.
We're getting a little more brightness and clarity over the other 8 and 4 flutes, but we're not getting what you expect.
Right. I'll add the block flute. And the si flute.
One of the other choices that Moller made that's a little disappointing are how low those upper voices break back.
Yeah?
The 2 foot breaks even, usually 2 foot goes all the way up, and I believe they break it in this one.
Yep, at G. And then the si flute.
Which is strange because the flutes in the other divisions don't do that. They will go
I
all the way to 2
imagine that
foot.
the poor pipe makers just looked at how small those pipes would be.
They are pretty small scale in
with
here.
it, we're not going to make that.
We also have a Nazat in this division,
Okay.
and we can just put that with the 8 and 4.
Oh, I can hear the break.
You can hear it. I believe it's one of Marcel Dupre's sketches that call for that exact registration, and the first note is F sharp.
I don't play it.
Yeah, that first note, and it's
Don't ask me to play that.
It's got a very distinctive first note, and I played it on this. That didn't work because it's broken back. Maybe someday those pipes will show up. We'll see. Maybe, but and then there is our tierce that you were looking for. It is in this division.
Okay. Trem.
Yeah. So it makes for a nice solo stop, but again, it is not your big mounted cornet that you expect to hear in a division like this. Now, there was no reed in this organ when I got here.
In the positive.
When we started talking about expanding the organ, I thought, well, let's do something for Mr. Brummer to honor his trying to make this organ a little more Baroque and bring it dragging into the 20th century. And so we wanted to find a buzzy little reed. And so we had Eastern Organ Pipes build us a Trichteregal, which, if you've seen those, they have a funnel in their skinner. They had never built one at 8 foot, I found out, after they started construction.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Yep.
And again, we had some delays in the process. Find me and buy me a drink, and I'll tell you the story. And it sat in storage, and when Reuter got it out, they said, this is in bad shape. We can't work with it. So Reuter said, hey, we've got this Dulcian at 16 foot. And I remember JR saying, it'll be great for your French classical music. And I think the crickets in the room told him something about the music we do here at Third Baptist. But he's right. It's very colorful. It's a useful, different sound. It's a big cylindrical reed, so it's kind of another big clarinet, but it's different.
Well, I'll play a Baptist hymn to try it out.
All right, see what you can do.
I'm sure the Baptists were happy. And then here's at 8. The trem. But it actually does sound very nice in that bottom octave. Well, nice is relative term.
Right.
But for Dulcian, that sounds...
and sometimes in some Baroque music, I have thrown it in there, and it does add just a little bit of color and edge to your bass. And it's available in the pedal at 16 foot and at 4 foot. So it can be your...
It's amazing how Dulcian, sometimes when you hear it, see a Z on a stop name, it really denotes something else.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any other stop that's more true with a Dulcian. When you see a Dulcian with a Z, it sounds like... And then when you see Dulcian with the C, it's
something different.
Really round clarinet-like quality.
And I should say this is a Reuter rank, I believe, from the late 60s or early 70s that somebody else didn't want. So it lives here now.
I'm shocked.
Until somebody brings me a Trichteregal or something that we might swap it out. And again, the only reason I would ever say to change it or alter it is because it's so much of a clarinet sound. Now
it's a great stop.
And you can combine it with the clarinet, which the clarinet is on our side of the choir. We should have talked about that. And it'll give you kind of a super clarinet.
Well,
so
you can combine it with the 4 foot flute. Perfect for your Mons, You got a 4 in the pedal. Again, perfect for your Mons. Let's see. I'm really trying to fit a square peg into a round hole here. Oh, we got to get the resultants and you know. You had fun with it, though.
Yeah. I channeling Mons one time, I think I played a concert with a pedal solo, and I had everything in the positive up to 1 foot on. And somebody came up and said, I didn't know the pedals could play that high. But it's like, I had to explain how couplers work. But yeah, and then that positive division, I feel like it's kind of, mostly I use it to color and season other stops and other colors, other parts of the organ. So I use that. I remember a young student here, I'm not going to say who because he's out in the world today making music, but he was playing a recital here and he was playing Duraflay, and registration is very strict with Duraflay, you know exactly. And he had something where the melody was low in the grate and the diapasons just weren't cutting through, and that's what was called for. And I went over and I turned on the Nazat in the positive and coupled it to the and suddenly it just added enough brightness. But watching he's like, but you can't do that to Duraflay. You can't change the stops. And I'm like, it's fine. You gotta make the organ do what it wants to do.
You know, so much, and forgive me all if you've heard my spiel before, but you know, organ registration is a lot like cooking, and you know, I think of playing Rager as, you know, preparing this gourmet meal, and then, you know, sometimes throwing on stops as a quick and dirty hamburger, you know, that you're frying up. But it really is, you know, like recipes, you know, call for certain things, but, you know, you might just taste it and think, that is just, it needs more oregano or something like that. And then the whole, you add a pinch, even though the recipe doesn't call for it, and the whole dish comes alive. Yeah. And that's true of organ registration. So you always have to just be, you know, follow the recipe, but if you don't like how it sounds, don't like how it tastes, you know.
And so that's what, in fact, there was a discussion one time about just putting all that on one stop and calling it a cornet. And I thought, no, you gotta, it's so, because I use that to color other things and to just change the way, because it's gentle too. That's one where its usefulness comes out.
Well, and I'm not a huge fan of when builders just put the knob, and unless it's a mounted cornet where you really can't use those things, but it's nice to have that flexibility, as you say.
Now, there's one other stop in here we kind of skipped over, and it is the 4-foot press stent. And again, press stent, I think in my mind, it puts what kind of sound I'm expecting to hear, so let's see what it does.
Yeah, that's pretty stringy.
It's stringy, but it's still got a lot of diapason sound, a lot of horn edge to it, again, like the Fugara. Moller maybe wasn't great at these 4-foot stringy sounds. I don't know, or this is what they liked. This is what they wanted.
I'll put it with the imposter quinceton.
Yeah, it's pretty strong, and in using it in the full cornet, it does add a little bit of punch over the 4-foot flute. A little bit. So the last stop here in the choir, and my favorite in this upstairs area here, is the clarinet, this Kilgen clarinet.
Kilgen, right?
Yeah, it's just lovely, dark, full, nice woody sound. So yeah, one of my favorite stops in there.
Also 5 inches?
I think that might be 3 of these front chests. Okay. Yeah. You're asking me questions now that would make me have to go check the books.
Don't you play this organ every Sunday?
Well, yeah, but I don't pump with wind, so. So now we go up the ladder here, and there's some more choir stops back here that are up off the ground. The first we have are Dulciana and Undamaris. This is one of the few unit stops in the organ, this Dulciana. First of all, let's just hear it by itself. This is the softest stop in the organ, and in fact, I did use it. I think last Sunday there was an a cappella moment in the anthem, and I just quietly turned on the Dulciana to make sure that they
Not your choir, no.
And they, you know, they, I don't know if they heard it or not. I don't know if they could even hear it over their own singing, but you know, it just, it's that soft.
I've been told, you know, aeolines on organs. Maybe I've said this in a previous video. We've done a lot of videos. I'm repeating stories, but you know, I can never figure out why those aeolines were on organs because they were so dang soft, and apparently they were. It was when you had a little quartet, you know, they could hear it, but the congregation couldn't, and they would sound like they were singing a cappella. It was a nice little trick.
There was a pastor here once that liked to have silent music, he'd have silent prayers, and then he would pray, and he wanted some music to fill the space, but he didn't want it to be intrusive at all. He didn't want it to distract people, so I was like, what does it matter what I play if somebody's going to be distracted? But so I would just use that so it would be as soft as possible. But it comes with an Unda Maris, which is right here next to it on its chest.
Let's hear it. What's a good Baptist hymn?
Just As I Am is the one that pastor liked.
Oh, wrong octave.
You're finding the magic of this instrument. And the Dulciana, again, the only unit stop over here is available at 4 foot. So you can even you can get a full chorus of Dulcianas if you want to use those and the super and subcouplers.
Audsley would be very proud of you.
Yes.
Audsley?
Yeah. Sometimes I do
missing
use
the 16. Yeah.
Well, but I use the subcoupler, and you don't play below low C, and we have our.
We'll get our fake Audsley here.
Right.
Although his Dulcianas were a little bigger.
They were a little louder and bigger.
But this is our tribute to Audsley. What was his favorite Baptist hymn?
Oh, you'd have to ask him.
Yeah. A little spiky as a 2, but it works.
So next to that, then we have another one of my favorites. I have so many favorite stops in this organ. The French horn. This is a Moller French horn.
All right.
Very rare. They didn't build many of these.
Yeah, especially late, right? Very nice.
Going further back now, here we run into the pedal. So in here we have the bottom of the great 16-foot, which we've heard, and then behind it is our bombard.
Oh,
this is Moller. It's a good rattle the room stop, and it's available at 16 and 8 and 4. So that's one of those last ones to come on a big crescendo.
Although it's enclosed, right?
It is enclosed, sure. But I also have the 16-foot on the grate and the 16-foot from the swell in there too. So there's plenty of options in the pedal there.
You people in St. Louis have all the money, I'm telling you.
So on our way out, we passed by the tuba. Now this organ didn't have a tuba. This is one of those things, I don't know if Kilgen or Moller ever would have built a tuba like this. And I know they probably wouldn't have because this is a copy of an E.M. Skinner tuba.
Oh, built by Reuter.
Built by Reuter. They're the one. That's why it has copper. They like copper for their reeds. And it lives in the grate. However, it plays on every manual. Is an independent stop.
No, but that's lovely. And does it super couple?
It does not, unfortunately.
Oh, but
it
still.
actually is a 73 note stop, and it did couple, but It wasn't supposed to, and that's actually something to maybe be resolved in the future, because that what happened was it just coupled with the rest of the division, and I wanted to be able to have it like a solo stop on the swell and be able to unison off the swell.
But that's lovely. That's really lovely.
Yeah, and I always have it on ready for any hymn whenever there's being spectacularly boisterous. We need to sing along with them. And it's right at the front. It's right by, you can see right here by the shades, and sings out into the room.
How many inches?
That one is on 12, I believe.
Okay.
So,
did your homework.
Yeah. That's this side of the organ. This is the biggest chamber, so we've already seen most of the organ. I believe there's 35 ranks in here.
Okay.
So I'm going to walk around, and we go all the way back here behind the baptistry, back where the Christmas decorations are stored, and there's this little closet, and these are baptistry dressing rooms. We just saw something like this at Broadway Baptist, where access to the organ is near the baptistry. And we open this up, and this is a much more crowded chamber over here on the swell. So we might as well do something different. We'll start with the reed. So right here in front this is the Moller reed. Now, when I came here, this is a 16 and 8 foot unit, 85 notes, and it was on what Moller used at the time, which are called shifters. And a lot of organ builders are getting very angry right now because they've had to deal with them.
Okay.
The technician
I've heard that.
The technician who was probably here at some point didn't want to deal with them, so it was wired to only play at 16 foot. So I didn't have an 8 foot trumpet in the swell for the first few years I played here, and so I had to couple it up, or I just got used to the sound of an ensemble with only a 16-foot contra trumpet. A friend of mine...
Well, you did have this.
I did have that one, yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
They're very different sounds, as we'll see.
Yep.
And a friend of mine crawled in the chamber one time, saw the scale of this thing, and went, oh, you got to throw this out. I'm like, you haven't heard it yet. It's got so much power, and it does so much for the organ. So here's the 16-foot in the swell.
It's nice and fiery.
It's fiery, it's thin, but it stands up to the ensemble really well.
I'm going to couple it to the grate, actually. Let's see. No, I'll have the swell enclosed, or closed down, I should say. It is enclosed. And let's see here. So.
Just what crescendo sounded like here in the early 2000s.
Right.
Fortunately, it's been repaired. It's all on working unit chest, so it is available at 8 foot.
And by repaired, they threw the chest.
They threw the Moller chest out and
okay.
built new Reuter chest. So. Now you would think me understanding that the 8 foot trumpet going to be available was enough, but no, I'd already put the seed down that we should have an independent 8 foot. And actually, I think I didn't know the 16 foot was 85. I didn't think about the fact that it would, because I was so used to it just being a 16. I'm like, we've got to replace the 8. So Reuter found this, I believe, from a Baptist church in Abilene, Kansas, a 1920s cornopian, which we've named trumpet here, made by Reuter.
Okay.
And give us a sample.
Nice contrast.
Yeah.
Both together. That
Right,
works
so
well.
when I'm tuning them too, we call one trumpet the other trumpet. And so when I'm tuning, I will tell the key holder English trumpet or French trumpet, so they know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has much more in common with the 1930 Kilgen sound over on this side.
Should not couple them together.
So having both of those is so amazing. They each add so much to the ensembles. And then, of course, the 4 foot clarion is also on this chest.
Sure.
This is Moller. Now, this stop I did have.
Okay.
So I could couple it down to as 8 foot. And so it was sometimes, and you'll see it's actually a little darker and warmer than the 8 foot when it's down in that octave.
Let me try that. It is.
So sometimes it gets used as an 8 foot trumpet still, just because I like having the variety.
Now I'm just dying to know what it sounds like with grate. That's not shy at all.
That's a lot of power comes out of
Wow.
that 16, even though it's small scaled.
Yep.
And again, we've got a situation here with between 2 8s, 4s, super and sub couplers. You can make your reed cores out of whatever you want. You can make just the fiery. You can super couple the 16 and 8, and now you've got a fiery 4-foot instead of that darker
Just
one.
like the diapason.
So yeah, it's too much fun. I don't know. I waste a lot of time. Actually, I come in, I set my pistons like on Monday or Tuesday. I come in to rehearse on Wednesday and think, what was I thinking? And I change them
Right,
all. And
yeah.
Sunday morning, I'm pressing the buttons, going, really? Is that what I picked? Also, we have
almost too much.
yeah,
to
just
deal
almost
with.
it's-
Right.
right in the middle here. We also have an oboe, and this is Moller oboe in here. It's kind of what I think of as a typical American oboe. It's not offensive. It's kind of a little small trumpet at times, but also not a super bright thing.
Well, and again, it works well, I'm sure, to couple it down to the grate, so you get just a little bit of reedy quality. That's all right. So we get a little bit of a reedy quality to it.
That's
adds
often
a lot.
I was gonna say that's often how I use it, even with just the swell choruses. And actually, when we were having problems with the Kilgen chest, and you had to draw some stops, and a certain number of stops to avoid ciphers, the oboe was frequently on anyway, all the time. So, and it gives some body to some of these other stops, and those are all up above us. We'll take a look at those in a minute. But behind me, we have more pedal stops. This is the Borden.
Okay.
16-foot Borden used to be over on the great side, and this was one of my choices. We moved it over here so we would have something bigger that was behind the swell shades.
Sure. It's almost as big as the open wood.
It's pretty big. So, and those used to be in the same chamber. So putting them, separating them was a good idea.
Right.
Because then we've got different expression. All right. So behind here
And it's extended.
Is extended. It goes all the way to 4 foot. It's almost, you don't need it very often because it is so big. Even though it's a soft stop, the Lieblichgedeckt, which is back here in the corner, is frequently all you need.
But I imagine this does a lot to add some clarity to the pedal.
Oh, it
line.
does.
It's
And-
sort of a theater organ trick, you know, that
Yeah.
the 8-foot line in the pedal is very important in achieving some clarity. A lot of people just kind of glom on the
Yeah, and I
16s.
think that's one of the things I end up doing here is that the Lieblichgedeckt is enough, but then I'll add the other 8-foots in combination
Sure.
to get the sound that actually best matches the manuals, but the Lieblich is fine. So let's listen to the Lieblich. It's back here, offset. Some of it's upstairs, but most of it's back here. And this is actually a manual stop that goes down into the pedal.
Is that Kilgen?
That is Kilgen. When I came here on the Moller organ, it was only available at 16, but it was an 85-note stop. Kilgen had planned for it to be extended to 8, so we re-extended it, so it is available now as 8-foot Gedeckt as well.
Cool.
Very thick period sound there.
Yeah.
But now, you mentioned theater organs. Before we go upstairs, behind the Borden, we have this large wooden stop back here. This is one of the few additions that were made in between Moller's time here and my arrival. And I mentioned this was the theater district in the 1920s. The St. Louis Theater was right down the street. Was the first company built by the St. Louis Theater Company. They later built the Missouri Company, which was right next door to the church. And sadly, the 32s of that organ, which were on the back wall of the stage, are probably under our parking lot now because they just bulldozed those with the building
Really?
into the
Wow.
ground. So
That's sad.
when St. Louis Theater still exists, but it became Powell Hall. It's home of the St. Louis
Right.
Symphony now. There was somebody there who desperately hated organs. I've read this. There were several things they wanted changed, and one was take the organ out.
Right.
The organ left. It was a 1925 Kimball, I believe. I got the year right. And some of the Theater Organ Society people got their hands on it.
As they often do.
And the 8-foot tibia, I think from the main chamber, made its way into this organ, along with a tremolo. that's appropriate. Now, I will say I didn't. Somebody told me, oh, it's a Wurlitzer. So for years, I told people it's a Wurlitzer, whatever.
Right.
Reuter went and found us a Wurlitzer tremolo. So it's actually a restored tremolo that's on this tibia stop. But it was
restored Wurlitzer trim.
restored Wurlitzer trim that they.
Got
so
it.
period.
On a Kimball.
Period. But we didn't know it was Kimball because nobody
Okay.
ever told me. I never looked at the pipes. The Reuter guys, I don't know if they ever bothered to look at. They hadn't seen them in situ.
Right.
So it was the late great Al Haker who came to visit the church while the organ was going in,
yeah.
and Al wanted to see the tibia because that theater organs are his thing.
Shocking.
And he
Miss
looked at
Al.
it, and it said Kimball St. Louis Theater. And he came and told me, he's like, you've got the old St. Louis Theater Kimball. So it's made its way down the street. So I love getting to tell people that there's a part of Powell Hall that is still making music here in Third Baptist.
And a very important part of Paul Hall. Very important stop.
So it used to live on some draw knobs down in the Great Inquirer because it had been added and there was some space. So since we were getting a chance to redo everything, we gave it its own division. It's a floating division that has to be coupled to whatever manual you want it on, but you can put it anywhere. And so let's start with just one. You're kind of you're
Come on.
let's ease people into this.
Sounds like a tibia.
Sounds like a tibia, big flute. Of course, the magic happens when you turn on the Wurlitzer tremolo. It makes it's got its.
I'm sure it's more
got
useful
its
than
place.
Yep,
Well,
yep.
we'll talk about that later. But it is unified, so we have it at 4, 2 2/3, and 2. Although it only is 73 notes, so it doesn't actually go all the way up to 2 foot.
I'm not a Baptist organist or a Lutheran.
I don't know if I would ever do that, but it shows up what it can do. I'll say the man who put it in, his name was Fred Pillsbury. I know a lot of people in the organ community knew him here. And his daughters still attend this church.
Okay.
And whenever I am able to work the tibia into a hymn or to a piece, they will come find me afterwards and tell me they heard it. So that's
What memory, what piston is that on?
well, I think on one. Are we on one?
I
Yeah.
hear how you use it.
Well, I think 16 has it for my emergency, and I use it as an accompaniment, so it's on the choir.
So
So a melody on your right hand on the grate would be what I would. Just hiding in the back is a 4-foot
love
addition.
it.
It just,
Oh,
it
I
just
wanna do
and
more.
because you can close it down in the grate, you
another
can.
Baptist hymn. I got one. Here.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, you're hired.
I don't get to do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can do it here in St. Louis. The Theater Organ Society love to come and do concerts here because they can make this church organ sound like a theater organ. So
I'm
and
not a
it's-
theater organist, but that's very convincing.
Yeah.
I could envision, actually, a lot of times when you go to silent films played on church organs, it's
sounds like church.
even if you have a really great organist, it's just theater organs, the best ones fade into the distance. You don't notice that they're there, and the best theater organists play so that you don't notice. Church organs, you always sort of notice.
Yeah.
No matter how good the film is and how good the organist's there, and how good the organ is, but that could pull it off.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Because it's the real deal. It's
Yep.
1920s. All right.
And now, what wind pressure is there?
I believe that's 12.
Yep, that would make sense.
And it can wind the organ a little bit if you use it. I don't couple it to the pedal is what I've learned, because it draws too much at the bottom end.
Yep.
And it'll bottom out the tremolo, and the tremolo stops
Yeah,
working.
that's not a good thing.
All right, so we're going to go up the ladder, and we go past this little floor area. Reuter has put in floors so you can work on the upper chest if you need to, and it houses the regulator. But the floors are perforated, so ideally the sound will come through. So we go on up, and now this is the upper two chests, and up here we have all of our flue work. Actually, over here in the corner, we have a Vox in a box. The Moller organ, the Vox was in a box, and so I made them build a box for it so that we can close it down as needed.
Sorry,
Very nice.
I don't get
You don't get to
cello
play with
solo.
us. You can, again, if you need to, you can open up the slots on the box here to get a little more sound out. I kind of like it just to add a little bit of sizzle to things, and it does really well. So back here in the back corner, let's start with our strings. I mentioned the viola celeste, or the viola. I mentioned the viola da gamba is one of my favorite strings in the organ. This is Kilgen, I believe. And then with it, we have, over here on the other side, we have a celeste that goes with that string. Winter weather, or the change from winter into summer, is giving us some squeaky joints that need to just be
92 degrees
adjusted.
Today.
So that'll be taken care of. But luxuriously, this is they're both 73 note ranks, so they go all the way down to low C.
Very nice. Yep.
Actually, I should add all the Celeste are 73 notes, and we have 5 of them in this organ. So it's kind of like having 10 when you can make them all into 4-foot Celestes. We also have the Geigen principal. Just a lovely sound that's fun to it mixes well with everything else, and is just a good bass for the organ.
Yep.
And then over here, we heard the gedeckt earlier. It's on up above the chest. We have the roar flute at 8.
That sounds Moller.
It is Moller, and it's fun to compare it to the roar flute that's over here in the positive. You can tell.
Vintagey.
Yeah. Now, when I came here, that was the only 8-foot. As I said, the gedeckt had not been extended to 8-foot, so you had. That's where you started, and so now it's so nice to have very different 8-foot sounds depending on how thick or thin I want it to be. I will say, as you were playing the positive there, the one change that was made before I got here is the positive can be moved to the swell, and I think that was pretty much so you could have your tierce and Nazard, because there's no tierce and Nazard in the swell. And I use that occasionally, but again, I just kind of to use some little things here and there to sparkle up the swell a little bit, not to really combine the divisions. Okay, and then we have, now, like I said, when I came here, there was the roar flute. It was the only 8-foot flute, and there was a flauto celeste. And play the flauto celeste and the roar flute. Let's hear those together. Didn't work. No, didn't work very well. And actually, I would say it was a 73 note flauto celeste. and I think it was just tuned to unison because it didn't really celeste well with the 8-foot, and even today it doesn't celeste with the gedeckt. So I said, we're going to take that 73 note. It was actually called flauto dolce at the time. Turn it into a flauto celeste, and we got a new flauto dolce. And so
nice.
Now we have appropriate flute celeste in the swell.
Just have to give you a hard time because that's electronic.
It is electronic, but it's there for a reason. Because
it does the job.
And then over here on the other side, we have our 4-foot principal.
With the Kilgen. Very nice.
And this has a 2-foot flautino, which interestingly enough is tapered. And so if you listen to it at the very bottom, it's a Gemshorn.
Yeah. Well, a lot of swell flutes straddle the line.
They're usually, when it says flautino, it's usually, it's trying to be a couple of things. But this one is so, when I got up and looked at it the first time, I thought, oh, it's a Gemshorn. And when you really listen to it, but it does its job because it works with the 8 and 4-foot flutes. It works with the Kilgen and the principal as well to give you choruses. Now, I skipped over the night horn. This is a new addition because originally the 4-foot flute was a triangle flute, and it was lovely. It just didn't blend with the 8-foots for any. And again, the only 8-foot was the Rohr flute. We didn't have the gedeckt, which I think would have worked better. We didn't throw it away. Don't worry. We put it somewhere else in the organ. It also didn't stay in tune very well.
Triangle flutes are lovely sounds on their own, but I don't find in a lot of organs they play particularly well with others. So it's not.
I just asked them, this is organ supply, give me something standard, 4-foot open flute, metal, and we have the night horn. Which of course was originally called Nachthorn, but I said put it in English. There's so many, most of the nomenclature is English. This is an American organ.
That works very well together.
Blends well with those. And then we have a mixture in here as well.
With the 8 and 4? I don't need the 2-foot flautino, do I?
I don't think you do, no. And that is everything in this crowded division.
That's a lot.
So now for here, we have to leave the room, and we're going to go back all the way back here and up 4 flights. Now this part of the building was actually added at some point. This was originally the front organ, but it connects through this little hatch up here by the chapel. Or you should let people peek and see the chapel because I would like for there to be a pipe organ in here someday. I'm not the only one. Hopefully that'll happen. There's a room that was built for it. But back here is a little hatch, and this takes us out into the attic. And so we are above the sanctuary up here, and Reuter put down this flooring when they moved the organ in because they didn't want to die by slipping through. It used to be when I came up here to tune, I had to walk very carefully. But there's this nice room here, and this is just freestanding up, and in it here we have 7 ranks. And so from up on the chest, we'll start with the 8-foot gedeckt. And this, now, I gotta say something about the pipework in this. I thought this was from the 1920 organ. I believed that because I know Moller reused all the pipework. That didn't die in the fire. It was called the Echo Division. They named it Antiphonal here. But I just, in the past year, somebody brought some paperwork to me from Gus Brummer, Midwest Organ Supply, and the church was doing something to renovate the ceiling, and they had scaffolding up. And he said, while the scaffolding's up, I want to make the openings better so that the sound gets out better. And I'm going to change the pipework out. So he took all of the 1920 Kilgen pipework. Maybe some of this is, there's a couple of stops that look like they could be Kilgen, but he just said vintage pipework. So it could be older than 1920. I don't know. And this gedeckt certainly sounds old, but it has Moller yellow paint on it. So, you know.
There you go. I Love it.
It's very nice. This division is completely expressive. It's got this great tone chute that just goes straight down to the ceiling. And I don't use this enough because where we're sitting, we're not getting nearly the impact that the microphones are picking up. And it works really well. It has this lovely 8-foot viol in here.
And I imagine that works really well with the Gedect. Nice.
I think Bill Klimas told me that viol was his favorite stop on the organ when he was
It
doing tuning here. So, and then it comes with a Celeste. This is so much fun to have.
I imagine it's fun to play it off of the...
Yeah, unfortunately, you can only couple the antiphonal to the grate,
Right.
because we just had...
No, I mean in dialogue.
Oh, in dialogue, certainly. Whenever, the pastor wanted inobtrusive music, that was my other option if I didn't use the
Ethereal.
undervoice. Yeah. Again, it's louder for them than it is for me, so I had to remember that. Continuing on, we have a 4-foot octave in here.
Was this put in just so they had a tuning stop?
I think, possibly, but as Bill and I were discussing, the 8-foot viol actually makes a better tuning stop than the 4-foot octave.
Okay. That sounds vintagey.
It does. It's a
sounds
thick,
very old.
again, another more of that horn diapason sound that we're finding in the 4. Maybe that was Gus Brummer too. Maybe he liked that thick 4-foot sound. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely old pipe work. This could be Kilgen, I believe.
But that works well with the Gedect.
And then in here we have our triangle flute. As we said, we saved this from the swell.
Yeah, that works much nicer as a ethereal effect in the back than it does.
And especially because it's so hard to keep that division in tune because it is much warmer up here in this antiphonal.
We'll try it. Dialogue with the Unda Maris and the Dulciana. I knew I'd find the box eventually. There, yeah.
The 8-foot Gedect is extended to 2 2/3 and 2, so those are just extensions of those. And then we have this trumpet, which I don't know what this is. This I knew was not.
Yeah.
This came from somewhere else. I think originally there was a Vox Humana back here as the reed, and it looked kind of Hoyt metal to me, so I was kind of worried about it. But it actually has a lovely sound. I've done that exact thing with that hymn.
I'm sure you have.
When there was a long-winded prayer leading up to the hymn, I had time to sit and think, okay, I could use this trumpet and this trumpet.
That's fun.
So yes, that's the antiphonal division, and that is So
don't you forget these chimes.
These chimes. Now I was sitting in here practicing one day, and our building manager came in and he goes, "I found some organ pipes." And I'm like, "What?" And of course, there were some things stashed around for people.
Sure.
People had been working on the organ,
Right.
And in a box that said Wicks Organ Company, but it was scratched out and wrote Marlin Mackley Organ Company.
Okay.
There was like a string, Celeste maybe, 49 notes. I think some of them were smashed, but there were a whole set of chimes. They were Deegan.
Okay.
And I realized what had happened was because in the Moller organ, the chimes used to be way up on that 3rd floor with no way to access them.
Okay.
And there was no chimes on them anymore. They had put in a new set on Peterson action because I guess the leather had died. There pneumatics, and nobody wanted to get up there and fix them, so instead they took them out, put in a new set. The new set's what we had here. We already had plans for them, and then when I suddenly realized we have an extra set of chimes laying around, I'm like, we're going to put them in the Antiphonal, and we have the echo chimes.
You can couple them together?
You can.
Only in St. Louis, folks.
I've
Only in
done
St.
that,
Louis.
the closing bits of the Sour Be Carillon, where it's bells everywhere.
Oh, that's nice.
Harp,
That's
Zimbalstern, just make everything run, and it works really well. So
Love it.
It's
Love
just
it.
more of that blending together that you get. So that's the entire instrument. Well done, Andrew.
I see why you didn't want to do this.
Yeah, that's why we put this off. Now, normally we would take this moment and we would put on some music and let people hear it. But here's the thing. There are hours of performances on this instrument on YouTube.
Including of this guy.
Including me playing it. I mean, there are Sunday morning services are on there. Don't watch those. They're not their best. But we have on my personal channel, and I'll put a link to it down below, we used to have our Friday concert series here. And I recorded them all, and if the organists were okay with it, I would share their recordings on there. And I think we had people come play the concerts just because they knew they would then get on YouTube.
Yeah.
And people would see them and they could share them. And so and lots of people using it in ways I would never imagine. So that's the best part, is getting to sit back and hear how other people use all of this amazing color. Again, just some things that I like to do. I mentioned that these strings are my favorites over here. Of course, coupling them together. The choir strings are so much softer that if you don't, it's more about adding brightness to what you have there rather than just getting a big swimmy sound.
You're going to make Peter Conti jealous of you here with all these strings.
But
here.
of course, yeah, if you supercouple and subcouple. Put the under celeste on if you want. Adds a little bit of body, and of course our Vox has got to be on. And then we can add our antiphonal swells.
Right.
And we do have an all swells that puts not to swell, I had them put it on the antiphonal, because that way your crescendo is right there if you need it.
Sure.
Because I would like to have something that lets you move the shoes around wherever you want them. But even with just, these things on, maybe a melodia just to give us a little. So yeah, with just using here a few stops, I mean.
Got the trims on?
You got the trims. And everything's closes down. It's the swell 16 Lieblich.
And Virgil's smiling in heaven.
Virgil stopped in one day. He played this instrument. We know that for a fact. Claire Kochi one time has played this. Of course, we've had a number of people some of them are concert organists today when they were students come in on our recital series.
Played this.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Star of the Organ Media Foundation.
And so, yeah, it's all about blending. So you can even take something like the schmaltzy, but, you can add your
Well, it's not. Theater organs would do that too.
Right.
You have lots of upper work.
And again, that's not a big, loud cornet. It's just giving us a little extra.
Put the dulce in to be a smart aleck, but
I have used that.
It actually works with the tibia because it's like a canura.
It is.
Yeah.
That's exactly how. Especially with the forefoot, if you've got it.
Oh my God, that is shockingly convincing.
Yeah, and because you can
great.
close that down. We'll have the tibia louder.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. But yeah, using it just sort of as a. Well, actually, I used it the other day.
Only in St. Louis, folks.
On a big loud. But at the end, there it is. He has a big schmaltzy chord. Take the tremolos off and it kind of resolves in this weird and the tibias weren't used in that. It was just you brought them on right there to just add that little bit of
right.
So yeah, it's kind of amazing. But yeah, it's the super coupling and subcoupling. That's the things that makes like Virgil Fox's arrangements, Bobby Hebbel's stuff, and Richard Purvis, those schmaltzy guys. But the stops they call for, they're here and they're right where they want them, and they super couple and subcouple perfectly. So those things are a lot of fun, and these people like it. So we also do a lot of Howells loves this instrument. It just lives here. We play a lot of Bach too. A little bit of Buxtehude even shows up, but it's it's best to do what the organ wants to do. And so
don't fight it. But it can do a lot.
Yeah. So go watch the videos. There's tons of recordings out there. But that's all we're going to do for now. So thank you, Andrew, for coming to town and forcing me to go through all of this instrument. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a thumbs up down below. He mentioned Woolsey Hall. We'd love to go to Woolsey Hall, but we have to have help to get there because it's not just us. We have crew here helping us out, and we would love to do that. So if you'd like to help us show more organs, you can do that by becoming a sponsor of the Organ Media Foundation. You can do that by going to organ.media. Until then, though, we're going to try to get out and make some more videos. I hope maybe Andrew will be coming again along with me sometime soon. So leave your comments down below if you like the video. And until the next one's out, remember you can always get streaming classical organ music on our 3 stations, organlive.com, Positively Baroque, and the Organ Experience. So Andrew, thank you again. This was a lot of fun to go through. I'm glad you made me do it.
My pleasure. This was a lot of fun. And until next time, I'm Andrew Schaeffer.
I'm Brent Johnson.
We'll see you next time.